Hello, and welcome back to Clash of Cronies. Another installment. Another couple of heroes that I'm going to draw and have y'all vote on them and decide who the ultimate victor is. So this week I figured last few times I showed more of the animation process in After Effects and in Adobe Animate. So this time I'm focusing a little more on the illustration side of stuff. So we're starting with a blank canvas, which is where it all begins. So I do most of these illustrations in Photoshop and just try to set them up in a way where it's going to be a little easier for me to animate later. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be getting into today. For anyone this is their first time viewing the channel, don't know what's going on, my name's Carter. I am a creative specialist at Wacom Experience Center in Portland, and we are a public space that is currently closed. Hoping to change that in the near future, but we are just trying to stay engaged with the creative community in Portland and abroad, and show off some content, show a little more about what we do. And so this series is just a fun way to draw some stuff, show it off, and hopefully give some insights into my process. So yeah, that is what we're getting into today. Previously on Clash of Cronies, we have two different battles so far. There was the Gargoyle versus Lizard Warrior. Lizard Warrior won by a very slim margin. And then last couple of weeks, we had Gerald, the kind of generic brand Witcher knockoff, versus why am I blanking on this? Gerald versus the Necromancer, kind of a hooded skeleton figure, and the Necromancer won by a landslide. So yeah, so that was, I think this week I'm going to, now that I've kind of discovered that maybe the kind of Witcher figure or hero figure may not be very popular. Even though he's kind of an anti-hero, whatever, that might not be a good route since it was so unpopular. So I'm going to try to do like two, and the Necromancer on the other hand was very like lovable in like a creepy little like goblin kind of like Skeletor way. So I'm going to try to create two characters that are like equally appealing in that regard. But we'll see where that ends up. My thoughts is a kind of gelatinous cube, which is like a D&D monster, which is basically just it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a gelatinous cube that kind of absorbs things, but I want to make it a little more cuter, like a little slime puddle that like jumps around. And that will require a lot of different style of animation than the kind of bipedal characters that I've been doing. So I think that'll be an interesting challenge. I have not seen Onward yet. Is that a Netflix thing? I just assume it's Netflix. Must watch. Okay, I'll check it out. The G Cube makes an appearance. Okay, sweet. So it's in the, I guess, the the public mind, the collective hive mind right now. It must be happening. That's why I thought of it. So yeah, I'm thinking gelatinous cube or something like that, and then also still thinking about a kind of a merfolk. Since it is Mermay, I have to honor that. but I would want to do kind of like a more in the vein of Shape of Water or Creature of the Black Lagoon, but we will see. We'll see where we get. And so the other thing I'm thinking about is Chris. Yes. Okay. Sure. Yeah, my coworker Christopher wants me to do a tribute to him in one of these characters, so it could be Chris. We'll see. I don't know how I incorporate you into that. I guess I could try for likeness, but that might be a horrible idea. The other thing going into this drawing that I'm thinking about is, sorry, a lot of precursor on this, but the other thing I'm thinking about is doing like I guess I could try to draw and talk. That's what most people do, right? The other thing I'm trying to think of is the other two environments were these kind of open air, like fields of battle, and I think this one I want to be more enclosed space. So I'm thinking of like a cave with like stalagmites being kind of like the foreground element that gives it that parallax effect. So I think that's what I'm gonna go for. Beard, headband. I don't think I've seen the headband on Christopher. I don't know. So I definitely the coffee for sure. All right. So let's see here. Oh yes, his Rona look. Also haven't really warmed up as far as drawing goes today, so you'll see me at my worst and then hopefully progressively get a little more in the flow. All my brushes that I saved went away. Not blaming any particular entity on that, but yeah, I have to go through and find all my favorite brushes again, which it is, that's kind of that's not, the end of the world, the fact that you have so many brushes to choose from that you have to go through and find them, but it's a good problem to have, I suppose. I was trying the gouache brushes from Kyle Webster a bit. Maybe I'll try those. Kind of want to try something different than my normal brushes, so I'm gonna try a gouache brush. Let's go. Kind of want something with texture. Oops. Yeah, I think that could work. So I'm gonna do my thing where I turn on the brush dynamics, or color dynamics rather, because yeah, I can't live without that. So the other thing I do is if I turn on the color dynamics, I like to save the brush so I can, otherwise if you switch brushes and you go back to it, typically the color dynamics will fall off of it, so you have to like keep going back into the brush menu. So let's just name this Gouache Dynamics. Okay. And then for color palette, I'm thinking kind of like blue violet, like dark blues, kind of indigo almost. For the cave, and then maybe we'll get some like green kind of like puddles or something in there. Ultramarine for those painters out there. Shout out to painters, just like me. Okay. I'll just roll with it. It's not my absolute favorite as far as how the brush feels, but it's okay. So one thing I have to think about with these, I'm gonna actually make my canvas a little wider for this reason. So these are ending up square. Because they're living on Instagram. But the kind of elements in the scene themselves, I want them to be a bit larger, so that I can sort of zoom in on certain elements and zoom out on certain elements. So if I have a little breathing room, I can create that like depth parallax effect that I've been going for, if you refer back to the other videos. So you basically just want to extend your landscape a bit. Oops. I think I will try out like the middle ground first. Pretty much separating all of these into like, there's like the sky, which is the very furthest back layer. Then you have kind of the background, which is more ambient and a bit more diffused looking to give that kind of atmospheric perspective. And then in front of that is the midground where the characters are usually battling on, and then in front of the midground is going to be just like some foreground elements. I think I've just been doing like little plants so far. Yeah, so those are the four kind of elements. Let me see here. See if I can zoom in. No, this brush is actually pretty good. The other thing I've been doing is kind of, I usually draw the environment first, and then that can, I guess you could really do it either way, but just keeping in mind the sort of values. So this foreground is going to be relatively dark since it's this kind of dark blue. So, you know, you're just going to want, if you made like a ninja or something that was dressed in all black, that would just be tricky as far as contrast goes. And I want people to be able to see the silhouettes of the characters that I'm animating with relative ease. So it's going to be a very dark kind of middle ground and background, and then yeah, like the gelatinous cube will just be kind of like fluorescent almost to kind of stand out against this. So think I need to zoom in a little. You know what? I'm gonna go back. I really like this brush that I discovered on our Experimental Wednesday stream that I did a while back. I'm actually gonna use this one. It's part of the newer brush set. It's called Sabertooth. It's very textural. I think that might be a bit better for this kind of underpainting. Going to turn on the color dynamics because once again I can't live without. And then I will save this. Can't type. I think for me personally, it helps when I'm starting to at least have a brush that has some kind of like extra texture to it or something interesting about it. You can see I'm getting like, with this brush, I get lots of texture. It just helps me sort of like have like, it has like a Rorschach effect for me where I will start to see like, oh, like rocks would be here. That's like somewhat being mimicked by the texture, or yeah, it can, I don't know, just sort of populating the space with like texture can just help me be a little more excited about it. So otherwise having to manually create all that texture intentionally, yeah. So let's see here. So I kind of want, like I was saying before, like a ceiling. We'll probably carve back into some of these shapes so they look a little derpy at the moment. My computer is sounds like a jet engine. It's about to take off. Sometimes this is a fairly, since I'm doing these raster based, as in, you know, pixels versus vector, you do want your images to be a bit larger so that you can zoom in without having noticeable pixelation. So these are, I think this is, for instance, like this canvas is probably like 17 by 15 inches at almost like a printable quality. So you could like print this out, which is usually, yeah, it's high res enough. So doing these really large brush strokes kind of makes your computer start to think. can already kind of tell that this is, I don't know, I just want to show more of this scene, so I'm going to shrink this down. Probably consult some kind of reference photo for this cave. We'll see. See how good I do on my own, and then if it sucks, we will look at some photos, see what we're missing. Trying to make sure I'm not just like showing my ear like I do most of the time. It's a posture thing. I'm working on a Cintiq 16 and does have an angle that it sits at. And there are tools available to me to make my setup more ergonomic, but I don't take those steps sometimes, and then I'm hunched over for hours on end. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, I mean, Wacom, not to plug the product too much necessarily, but ergonomics are kind of have been integral to the designs for the inception of the company, so it's been slowly sort of honed over the years. Starting to take shape. Right now it's really boring because it's like perfectly symmetrical. So I need to reevaluate what's going on here. And just kind of, once I get in some detail, I find it helpful to, people always say like, well, some people always say like to work in the round, which is, you know, kind of like step by step to get like the holistic picture, and then refine the whole thing like holistically, step by step. And I agree with that for the most part, but for me personally, it helps my drive to complete an image if I focus in on an area and get it to a finished quality, and then it helps me see what the rest of the piece could look like if I decide to dedicate more time to it. So that's something helpful for me, is just like do whatever excites you. If you're like, I want to go in and spend a bunch of time like shading this rock, you know, as long as that like just kind of helps inspire the rest of the piece, go for it. That's, I would say most of my practice is just rendering little rocks. Happy little rocks. But I'm actually seeing where this brush might not be the best for refinement, so I don't know. Just gonna try to get some detail to help me inform the space. Kind of want to go for like sort of like salt mine, or, you know, I'm sort of imagining like, I don't know, I guess again, this is where research helps, but like sort of like sulfur pits or something, where it's like that kind of like smooth rock that's built up. It looks like little dollops of like sediment that, you know, that's what I'm going for. You know what I'm talking about. I need to go the same before. This looks too symmetrical. It's kind of boring, so I'm gonna delete this guy. Try to refine the shapes a little more of these. I can see, now that I'm thinking about it, it'd be more interesting if maybe all the ceiling isn't shown in the composition. It's like the sky is breaking, is like hitting the edge of the canvas here and there, so opening up like this area here. It's a little more interesting than if there's just like a flat compositional piece across the whole top. I know this ends up just looking like this it just ends up as like two characters battling each other, and it's like nerdy and silly, but there's some thought that goes into it, I think. I would like to think. Now I'm thinking. Believe it or not. This is a thinking man's piece here. Really makes you wonder what's going on in this cave. How did they get here? Old Greg. That's a throwback. Getting to the point where if I reference Old Greg, people are gonna think I'm old, like Old Greg. I'm Old Greg. This is reminiscent of the Old Greg. So this is what I want. I'm gonna have kind of like two mid grounds. I think I did this on my last one. So I had like a distant background, then I had like a kind of background or mid ground 2.0 that was a part of the background, just for like a fourth layer of depth. So I'm going to add. Nope. Yeah, that's fine. Let's do like this little chunk. It's going to be on its own layer. Probably going to shrink this guy down. So this is what I always do is like whatever edges of the canvas I have, I always like crop my composition to make it make sense within that frame, but then I'm like, wait, I need more breathing room, so I have to like take what I've made and shrink it down. So like edit scale. It's honestly good because some of those larger brush strokes, once they've shrunk down, they look a little better. I'm just gonna kind of do this all on like this one indigo hue for the most part until I get just kind of the overall shape of everything, and then I'll go back in and maybe hit it with some colors, some different colors. I'm just sort of doing like a value painting at the moment. Gotta have a nice flat area for my battle to transpire. Otherwise I'd have to animate them like up a slope the whole time. So it's going to be this cave that they're going to be fighting in, and in the background I want to be sort of this like underground lake. Kind of thinking of the scene of like, well, either like Golem's little lake cave thing, or yeah, something like that. Maybe there's like a shipwreck in the background or something, very Goonies-esque. So that is the vibe. Trying to bring in some other color, but I think I'm actually gonna stick to the original plan and just try to figure out the shapes and the composition first, and then I can kind of go back in and add some variation. Another trick that I like to use is, like, for instance, right there, I was trying to erase with this eraser, and it's creating a super clean edge, which I might want to use later, but something something I found helpful is just whatever brush you're on, just go up to clear instead of normal. And then you can kind of get the same edge quality with the eraser as well, so it just looks a little less out of place than just like a flat round 100% eraser just cutting into your painting. So although this does leave behind some little bits that you have to be careful about, because those will definitely show up in the animation. They'll be a little more apparent if they're moving. Yeah, can go back and clean those up if I need. Right now I'm just sort of focusing on the kind of silhouette of these shapes and the negative space, those shapes that they're making. And then I'll kind of go back in and start rendering. I'll go ahead and change gears a little and work on the background. Not really changing gears at all, doing the same thing, but just I'm gonna try to get away from fiddling with this foreground for a bit. I think I'll come back to it, and once I know what the background needs to look like, it can help me clear away certain spaces, or yeah. Let's go. I've been doing these backgrounds fairly analogous scheme. I'm probably gonna stick with that, and I don't think I've really done any like purples yet, which is usually my go-to, so I think I can get away with leaning back on that crutch. Just comfort zone kind of thing. I think this right here was one of my favorite colors for a long time. Still appreciate it. It's like a periwinkle, I suppose, or kind of pale lavender, I think. It's a color that I really like, and I think it got a lot of use in this like kind of internet art space that was really trendy for a while. Not anymore, I don't think. And so whenever I used it, I think people would be like, oh, vaporwave, right? And I was just like, yeah, I guess. I don't really want to do that, but fine. And then I tried to like stray away from it for a long time to avoid that sort of. Yeah, I mean, this image is clearly not trying to follow that sort of trend, but yeah, sometimes, I don't know, you just have to like try other things. You can always revisit it, but I just had to convince myself at least that I wasn't just using pastels as like a, I don't know, just to follow the trends. It's hard to not at least get a little kind of, whether you want to admit it or not, like some just subliminal kind of like influence from what sort of the popular visual styles are. I feel like they always creep their way in, whether you want it to or not, just because people are usually looking at social media and whatnot. And I don't think it's a bad thing to sort of bring those into your practice. It's just sort of, you're just showing that you're kind of participating in the ongoing dialogue. But there's definitely something to be said for like a very unique standout style that you can call your own, that has somewhat of a timelessness to it because of how authentic it is. So there's no right way necessarily. It's just sort of some different approaches and kind of ways I feel like you can think about it. Something to think about. And I'm not thinking about my drawing right now because I'm talking too much. Just get off my soapbox and try to draw. Alright, I'm kind of over this brush. It's not reactive enough to what I need. This one is it's like the opposite. It's like very buttery. Every little variation in pressure is like very apparent. It's a little too slick looking, I think. This is good. This is one of my faves. It's like a dry brush that I've added some color dynamics to. I'm gonna go into the zone here for a little bit just because this image still looks bad to me, so I just need to focus in and get it to a spot where I can start refining it. So if you have any questions, I'll be sure to respond, but for probably the next... Did I hear about the coal mine that caved in? No, I didn't. Been kind of like... I don't know. I've been checking the news, but I try not to too frequently. That sucks, though. I mean, that's an understatement, but... Oh my god. Damn you. You trolled me. You trolled me. I fell for it. This is a first, folks. I will remember this. You saw my whole process of like, no, taking you seriously, and then just like plummeting. You are the worst, sir. Painting is failing me right now, so I'm going to actually just try to lay out some simple shapes using the lasso tool. using that lock transparent pixels to just give some shading to these basic shapes. Don't have to worry about coloring outside of the lines. It's a really effective way to work, if I do say so myself. It's helping me at least. Alright, so think of like another background here. Yeah, I'm just like just trying to get just the basic sort of atmosphere going on, so sort of like layering those shapes. I'll probably go back in and add a little texture to them, but I guess I don't want them to be super distracting, so they should remain pretty subdued. Okay, I'm gonna go back in and add some texture to these different parts, or I'm kind of like render things with my brush a bit rather. So this one might have a lot of background elements because I think I kind of want to keep all of these separate, so I think it could actually be cool to just have like 5 background layers that have like a ton of parallax effect where they like scrunch together. Might as well. It's just a matter of scaling them up and putting them back further in Z space within After Effects. And then you just kind of let the camera do all the work. So just gonna, yeah, hopefully as I work on these, I mean, it's like, I think it's a total of like 8 videos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 videos. Hoping to see some improvements along them. I already think the animation on the second one was quite a bit better. Albeit I think it took a lot longer, but yeah. Hopefully efficiency, quality, all those things can sort of just keep happening. So that is exciting. Because I think an animation of this scope would, you know, even like a year ago, I think would have taken me a lot longer. So it's true, you have to practice. Okay. see here. Thirsty. Name my layers. I'm using the lock transparent pixels here. Just gonna sort of add some interest to these background shapes. I'm gonna try to spend not too much time on them, since in the grand scheme of this animation, it's not the most important thing ever. In fact, I think it can even look better if it's gestural and quick and has kind of energy to it, versus if you like really try to labor things. Goes back to that Bob Ross style. The patron saint of painting. Chris Diego Art being a little demanding here. I don't see any merfolk. Yes, it's true. Good. I'm not going to acknowledge. I'm not going to encourage this behavior. Have a troll in the chat. Just kidding. It's fine. It's welcome. Yeah, it's true. Brace yourself, Christopher. I'm gonna be trolling next week. I'm gonna hire a click farm to come at you. What did the sea say to the mer person? Just a sigh. It just waved. Bravo. Bravo. If I only finish the background today, I mean, I feel like that still be some good headway. Even though I know characters are a little more exciting. I could maybe change and try to draw those as well if I just get to a satisfactory part of the background, which I think is coming along. There's some spots that I think are turning out well. So once I, at least for me, once I'm like at least confident that I can finish it and make it look good, then I can move on from it. But until I convince myself of that, I sort of just like flounder and labor over it. But I think it is towards a kind of a point of resolution, so. Yeah, it's like a, it looks slightly different on my two screens, so I can't really tell. I'm gonna trust the Cintiq screen, that color accuracy. But yeah, it's kind of like a pale lilac, kind of ashy purple. You once swallowed purple food coloring. Nasty. I don't want to know the rest of that story. Oh my god. I looked at it and I was just like, okay, but you got me again. That one was worse because it took me a second. I can't believe now I just can't trust anything you say, because they all, from a normal perspective, look like the setup to a joke, but I'm just not seeing it every time. God damn it. You will pay for these crimes. Yeah, just do the compilation reel of me just getting trolled. Does the chat show up in the download? I mean, I'm sure you could choose to have it that way. I like this background bit more than I like my foreground, which is where people are going to be looking. So I just have to make sure the foreground looks cooler. Yeah, I haven't done the OBS recording either. I've just downloaded from Twitch, and I don't think that has the chat embedded, but you could just screen cap the parts, I guess. Okay, I'm done with this background. Need to stop. I think like now I feel warmed up, like just now. That's like an hour and a half later. Which means I may be able to at least do a character. Since I mean, I know people love watching me paint rocks. My favorite thing. I know that's what people come here for. But I could do a character. Thank you, Wacom Experience Center. I try. It's my favorite thing to paint. stage is set. It needs a little more work, but it's everything's in place, so I can shift over to draw something. Just save real quick. Here's a question for chat. So if I draw like a merfolk, should it have like a fish tail, fish bottom, or should it walk on two legs? What do you think? Uh-oh. Did I freeze? Oh no, I'm alive. Looks like my Twitch window like froze for a second, but it was just on my end. Two legs. Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning. Legs, but tail as well. Okay. It's a weird one. That sounds horrible, but it would be like weird and original. Tonberry from Final Fantasy. No, I haven't. Let me look it up. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know who that is. Now that I see it. Yeah, that is kind of cute. I'll pull it up for the people. This is the source of inspiration, perhaps. It's pretty cute. I do like the little cloak on him. I mean, that was sort of what I had in mind. To be like a mystic or a shaman or something. Merfolk warlock. It's okay. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the tail happens. I don't trust myself to make it look cute, so I think the tail would just be added weirdness. It would definitely lose the vote. Old Greg style merfolk. I don't know what that looks like. Just old boot. do want these kind of like those little like fin things going on the side of the head. That is for sure in the design. Just gonna do like a pencil sketch first, and then it's hard. Yeah, true. It's like sadly I never got to play like the N64 classic Legend of Zeldas. I've only played one DS game of Legend of Zelda, actually. I'm deprived. I would watch friends play it. It was pretty great. I'm not alone. Not everyone has played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It just seems like everyone has. Edit, scale. I had classics like A Bug's Life. Thanks, Mom. No, I'm just kidding. I should be appreciative. Bug's Life was a fine game. Star Fox was my favorite on N64. I played Star Fox like we got. Oh, I see. You're not allowed to play them because it's always being played. The console's never available. The Golden Berry. I've so vaguely remember that. Is that Star Fox? No. Oh, you were talking about Bug's Life. Yeah, that's right. Bug's Life. Oh my god. The Golden Berry. I totally forgot about that. F Star Fox. Wow. Bug's Life is the greatest. It is great. It was a rad game. I also had this game that was called Beetle Adventure Racing, and it was like all about like Volkswagen Beetles, like the car, and it was like a Mario Kart kind of ripoff where they could like shoot rockets at each other. It was really goofy. I had a few games, but yeah, I don't know. Good times, to be sure. I also had the Toy Story game, which was difficult. I feel like all those games I would always hit like a wall. There was always like one level that just like destroyed me. I want to say in Bug's Life there was like a level where you had to sail on those like dandelion seeds, and I could never. It was like the level after that where like the bird is coming for you. I don't know. It was difficult. I don't think I ever made it to like the Bug City. Did draw a robe last time, which is kind of a cop-out. Because then I could just hide all the body parts under a robe. But I don't necessarily want to go as hard as I did on like the Witcher guy, which was a lot of moving parts, so... Let's do the robe, it's fine. Maybe he has like a big like fossil or something on his back. I feel like that could be cool. I want kind of like a hermit vibes going with this guy. So maybe he needs to be a little more hunched over. Trilobite, that could be sweet. I guess I have to remember that I need to make them equally lovable so that it is a close race. And I already feel like the gelatinous cube is very lovable. So I have to make this guy very cool to try to have any chance. is hard because I already did this, like, I feel like I'm just doing the necromancer again if I draw this guy. Because it's like cloaked shaman dude that isn't very mobile. I might have to abandon the merfolk. I might go skeleton warrior. I get that would be another skeleton though. There's no winning. I just have to make the merfolk cute. I think that's the key. Yeah, I could have a trident. That's a good idea. Stop. Sequin cloak. That could be sweet. I could see some like scale armor for sure. Okay. Gonna break down and use reference photos for some kind of shell. So I know I'm just staring at my screen over here. This seems okay. Thanks, Vector Stock. Typically, I guess I wouldn't advise like using reference photos that are already stylized, since you're getting a distilled version of the actual thing, but it's honestly I guess, like, I don't know, like botanical illustrations and scientific illustrations can be sometimes more informative than the real thing, just because of like how precise they are. There's some interesting photos, but I'll just go off that. Ooh. Okay, now I'm just looking at scientific diagrams. Okay. Back to the task at hand. I lost my Twitch window. Wonder if this... No, it looks too good for that. I was gonna ask if this stock photo was like live traced it, like a photo that they just sort of, you know, you go in Illustrator and you say like 20 different colors and you just hit OK and it will vectorize a photo. It like looks like that in some parts, but then it looks more refined, like the black outline some places, so it's probably a legit illustration. It's gonna have this little seashell hatchet. That's what I've decided. That ain't it. It's kind of turning out to be more of like a warrior looking type, but can have some magic up its sleeve. So yeah, this is essentially, I'm pretty happy with this. I think I could work it a little, and I think it's a fun concept. We shall see if I stick with the gelatinous cube for the other enemy that it will be facing, but thank you, Wacom Experience Center. Yeah, so this is kind of the sketch, I think, where I will end off for now. Let me just scale this down to show what it will look like. So this guy is very thematic. I want lots of like shell armor, and I'm into his little like scallop hatchet that he has. So yeah, it'll be that versus some other opponent, and I'll probably finish that up this weekend, and hopefully we can get a kind of a finished video out for people to look at and vote on for who they want to win and progress. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and we will catch you next week. Thank you very much. Everyone have a great weekend. 3-day weekend. What's up? Thanks for everyone that's watching. Appreciate it. All right. Take care, everyone.